Yeah, thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Murli and Team Shenzhen for this opportunity. It's really nice to, always, come to a platform like this and share my experiences. I hope everybody is doing good. I know it has been like close to 2 to 3 months now. We have been away from our physical workplace. So I know most of you are working from home, and I guess some of you might have just a very like 10% or 15% of the workforce might have started going to work. However, I think since the pandemic and the crisis continues, I think still most of us are working from home. So I think it's a very good opportunity, to make use of this. And the one thing that comes to my mind is like this famous quote of Winston Churchill: "Never let a crisis go waste." Right. So I think more than like cribbing about this crisis, I think for us, for each one of us, it's a wonderful opportunity to see. So what is that we can do, how we can grow, how we can professionally as well as personally. I know so many of them, apart from working, some of them have been getting into culinary and art, gardening, and so many things people have picked up. Even I too did some of them, some of the dishes which I never was planning to cook, I cooked. So the best part for me is driving. The only thing that I liked very much about this is like I'm saving like 2 hours of my time, in the traffic. But still, definitely, I too miss that physical, meeting people. I'm sure, like all of you. So let's get started, right? So it's a COVID era. I mean, we all know. So companies around the globe are like, struggling to manage and motivate their workforce and enable productivity while dealing with this uncertainty. We don't know for how long this will continue, and there are layoffs that's happening. So while it may be, it's kind of like odd to think about employee retention during this crisis, but there has never been an important time to focus on how we are supporting our employees and the future of our business, right? So what are we doing about this, right? So, we cannot be sure what kind of the right business decisions to make to manage this crisis. But however, we still, we are taking some decisions, and we are taking a two approach. One is looking outward and looking inward. So from the HR perspective, if I have to say, the biggest prong of an outside focus initiative is usually for us it is recruiting. But if any of our companies is facing layoffs, furloughs, all this recruiting, like understandably, is unlikely to be a top of the mind focus right now. So that leaves us looking with the inward approach. So the inward approach, so what people you already have working for that can be trained, so how they can be trained to take up leadership roles, how you can keep them supported, how you can keep them involved, engaged, and how you balance out the diversity, so all these. So how you can help them unlock their potential, right? So how can these, companies, business, and organization, pivot to survive in this era of COVID, right? So especially, for companies, for workplaces that is dependent on collaboration and team building, the sudden switch to remote work, has created like a feeling of, oh my God, like what's this kind of a thing, right? So as we have already moved into a new norm and continue to move for of working from home, so the value of communication is important more than ever. Okay, so how do we connect people in an isolated world? So most of us, like in our if you have to take mentors, like we all have mentors in our personal lives or professional lives, right? Like, so some trusted people whom we can turn to for advice when we face some life's hurdles, or people who are our greatest cheerleaders during any personal victories or crises, during victories. And many of us seek out a mentor during times of professional transition, such as career changes and new roles. So in this time of physical distancing, so how can human connection, it has like more than ever, it is highly critical. It's very critical. So people are experiencing like an unprecedented and abrupt transition to working, learning, and connecting remotely. So whether they are ready, whether they feel they are ready for it or not, but still, we were not ready for it, but we all got adapted, and we are continuing to, connecting virtually. So how now coming to the leaders? So how can leaders, the business leaders, act quickly to foster these connections and ensure people feel supported? So one way of doing this, or one of the strategy, is introduce a virtual mentorship program, that creates a deep, purposeful relationships from far off, right? So while some organization will face harder times than others in how to implement this strategy within an organization, I think what I will be, going through now is like, touch upon like, just a second, yeah, touch upon so the areas of like what is mentoring. So I'm going to be covering, I know most of you know, but still I'll quickly go through this. Then the benefits of workplace mentoring, the process, relationship, the skills and experience of mentor, then some do's and don'ts, and ending the relationship of this mentoring, and then some commonly asked questions which I myself have come up with. So when I was told that by Murli that when I was asked to speak about this, so I was thinking like okay, I was just thinking about this because as you all know, like these days everybody are saying that okay, we are all going back to the good old days, right? People have become very conscious about the health, about eating. I know some of my friends have stopped eating non-vegetarian food, and then many want to grow vegetables at home, getting into this organic growing of vegetables or organic farming, people who have land and all. So when I was just thinking about this, so one of the things came to my mind. So mentoring is the term which we use in a corporate circle, corporate life, in an organization, right? So if you think from time immemorial, uh, mentoring, I mean, people had, for example, you take the great epic Mahabharata, right? So Arjuna had Dronacharya as his guru, right? He was his mentor who guided him, made him successful. And even if you take on the other side, like the great Maratha warrior Shivaji, Jijabai, his mom, was his greatest mentor, right? So whatever field you take, whether it is from time immemorial, or even now the political or religious, or the Bollywood, Hollywood, or anyone you take, or any successful people when they are being interviewed, one of the things when they ask is, oh, he mentored me or she mentored me, she has been my greatest mentor. You always hear this word mentor, right? Even as a HR leader, if you want to as a part of capability building, come up with any leadership development program or whatever. So one of the questions the consultant asks is, okay, do you have a mentorship program in place? So this is what it is. So what's mentoring? So it's a system of some structured or semi-structured guidance whereby one person shares his or her knowledge, skills, and experience to assist others to progress in their lives or career. So it's a two-way process. So we're an experienced professional whom you call the mentor. So mentor or mentor. Mentor is an American pronunciation. Mentor is a British pronunciation. So the mentor provides guidance and support to a new entrant, or the new entrant can be a fresher, or it can be a mid-level talent, who's called the mentee, who intends to benefit. So this mentee is going to be benefited by the learning and teaching in a workplace settings, right? So what is the purpose of mentorship? So why is it we should be doing this, right? So it is basically to tap the existing knowledge, skills, and experience of high-performing employees and transfer these skills to the less experienced or the new employees, so that helps them to advance their career. So if you see, as a part of your talent management process, or as a part of your, in an organization, as a part of your people strategy. So if you think of the employee life cycle, it cuts across throughout, right? So mentoring at employees at all stages, it contributes. So where all it contributes? It contributes during the new hire productivity and retention, right? So when a new entrant, when either a fresher level person enters the organization, I'm sure most of you have this buddy program, or like I know, for example, if I have to give an example from my own company or from my past organization. So the engineering team, I mean, basically I've worked in all technology companies, so that's the best thing. I mean, that comes to my mind immediately. The technology team or the engineering team. So you have the engineering manager, of course, beforehand, the HRBP would have informed these are the people coming, and based on the skills and all, they would have like identified and paired a mentor and mentee for a different set of new hires that are joining. So this is where it helps. So it contributes during that time where it helps. And of course, retention, when I talk about, because you cut across right from beginning until the end, retention begins right from your, pre-hiring, hiring, until the employee goes through all stages, right? Onboarding till offboarding. So these are the touch points where it will definitely help when there is a mentor and there is someone for a new hire to guide and to, provide advice or help him with this development. So again, I'm talking about career development, same thing as a part of your performance management process, where where an employee, supposing, let's say, he or she would like to like he's a senior engineer or engineering manager, or before he becomes a manager, someone might say, hey, I don't want to manage people, but I want to move on the technical ladder. So he may seek advice from his mentor, right? So I want to become an architect. So how do I go about this? Okay. So as a part of his career development, so not only career, it can also be in terms of soft skills, like, in terms of enhancing, supposing a salesperson, if he wants to enhance his presentation skills, or so many other, time management or whatever. So both basically it helps an employee for his career development or professional development, and also leadership chain development. So that is somebody who's at a manager level or a senior manager level, want to move to a leadership role, want to head a particular vertical or a particular business unit. Okay, so they need a lot of coaching, lot of mentoring. So this is where this mentoring also helps a lot. And in terms of diversity and inclusion initiatives, so apart from gender diversity, if you want to take initiative with respect to the inclusivity, how to make an unbiased decision, so many things, managing people, all kinds of people, so even for that, and knowledge transfer among generations. So in large organizations where you have generational workforce, people of different generations working, so there can be someone, a very senior leader or a senior business head, who would be transferring the knowledge to the younger one or the new entrant or someone who is just taking up that role. So holistically, if you have to say, like mentoring promotes employee engagement, and ultimately it helps with the retention. So how can you achieve this in your workplace, right? So as I already mentioned, so you consider this for everything, right? So for career development, for leadership development, for diversity mentoring, reverse mentoring also. There can be a junior employee who is, mentoring a senior employee. That has happened, and many organizations have this program in place. And of course, knowledge transfer, which I already touched upon. So just to say, like, mentoring, it works to power, it helps with a variety of talent development programs in the organization. So now, I thought, like, it's just me talking, so let's there be some kind of, interactive session. So have you all heard about Femto? So what do you think? What is Femto? I'm asking the participant. You can put it in the chat session there. So what is Femto? Ankita, perhaps you can help me with the answers.
Yeah, sure, Punya. Just waiting for a few answers. Can you repeat the question again for me?
What is the Femto? I have put it across on the slide. What do you mean by Femto? Has anyone answered, or people can quickly Google it?
Answer is mentor.
Sorry? I don't know. Ankita, do you think they have the option to unmute and answer, or they have to answer on the chat?
No, they're answering on the chat. The answer coming is female mentor or yes. Female mentorship.
Yeah, correct. Yes, yeah. So Femtor we normally don't use, but there are like Femtor is one woman mentoring the another woman, or a group of women, or whatever. Okay, all right. Let's move on to our main agenda for the day, the virtual mentoring, right? So mentoring in a professional setting, can be formal or informal. It's an informal partnership, where team members receive guidance and advice from an experienced professional in the organization. So mainly the focus is on like open communication, growth, and development. So virtual mentoring is basically a strategy that helps organization foster, meaningful relationships and maintain personal connections, which I told earlier, even when team members are working from home. So, in recognition of this basic need for human, connection, so a virtual mentorship program establishes a very deeper, communication between mentors and mentees. So, this strategy, serves to support both mentors and mentees, as it enables them to feel less isolated while reaffirming their engagement with the organization. So, but I mean, you just look around your organization, right? Like, so how many team members have a mentor as part of their, ongoing work experience, right? So, as the workforce, continues to change, and mentoring, plays an ever increasing role in how organizations can and should improve employee retention and performance. So, as per McKinsey research, they say, okay, 79% of the millennials, they see mentoring as very crucial to their success. So organizations need to keep up with and support employee mentorship opportunities, like, and see that how it can help them. So now let's get practical. So one of the thing, so let's see like what is the significance and what are the benefits of a structured workforce, workplace, sorry, mentoring program. So supposing, let's say, like, I mean, as you know, again, like mentoring is one of the most cost-effective ways where you can invest in training them and promoting diverse talent, right? So you don't need to like shell out any, shell out for any expensive conferences, or send them for some expensive training. So you probably already know who are the rising stars at the junior levels of your organization. So you need to just set them up for success. Help them grow, help them navigate to a leadership role. How can they transition into a leadership role? So if your team is already strapped for time, so you can actually you can utilize a cost-effective third-party mentorship service. There are so many players in the market, who provide. I mean, with the help of technology, you do that also. You can seek their assistance in finding and managing logistics, or you can introduce smaller ways also in your organization, and thus create a culture of this open communication and mentorship, where it really pays off in the long run. So, as I, as far as the benefits of this workplace mentoring is concerned, I spoke so much about this. Yes, definitely, it creates a very good learning culture in the organization. So, it helps to promote both personal and professional development, reduces the cost of learning, which I touched upon, and stress and anxiety. Yes, definitely, it reduces because, sorry, main thing is I know, like I have heard some stories where in some organizations, especially the youngsters who are away, like in Bangalore, the parents are in somewhere outside of Bangalore, and they are alone here. So some of them are stressed out, they're anxious, like what's going to happen. Especially this was peak sometime in March, April, and all, right? April, May also. People were like really like worried. And there were so many companies, I know some of them got in touch with me because some were doing, some were downsizing, and I believe some PGs had asked their occupants to leave. So in times of these, I think having a mentor or having someone talk to you really helps. Okay, so as a mentor, he or she would not only be touching upon your regular, I mean, your goals or whatever you have set in, but also touch upon your bit of your personal aspects in terms of ensuring that your or if I have to just put it in one line, I mean one word, it is in terms of your mental well-being, right? So the other thing, or the other significance of mentoring is, the benefit of mentoring is, definitely it helps with your job satisfaction, and helps in reducing the attrition in the organization. But it also helps the mentor also, means the person who is guiding, who is, advising, who is guiding you, who is, talking to you. So that I have in my later slides, where I'll show you what are the, how the mentor is going to be benefited. So it comes as a full circle. So now what do I mean by full circle is like, so I'm a new entrant, who has joined this organization. So I have had a mentor who has guided me in my career, in my professional development. He or she has been my sounding board in terms of my, whenever I had any stress or whenever I had any issue or anxiety or concern while working. So, and I have benefited, to a great extent. So now I have completed few years in the organization, so now when another new person joins, so I would be the mentor to the other new entrants or to any other person, right? So this is where that's what it means by like you come up full circle. Okay, so the advantages of virtual mentoring has been like definitely now flexibility, because supposing, let's say we never had this crisis and all of us would have been that old norm of working at office, right? So what happens, let's say mentor and mentee, they would have fixed a schedule, a time. Okay, they would be meeting on a certain day and time, let's say last Friday of every month between this time to this time. But it so happens that always either someone will get busy or someone will have some urgent call to attend or some bug to fix, so that get cancelled. And so whereas now when you're virtual, there is a lot of flexibility in terms of choosing your time. You can always say, yesterday I was talking to someone, so it was like after office hours, like around 9 o'clock, I took the call. I said, no, I think I'm convenient. For me, it's better to take the call at 9. So you have this flexibility in this virtual program, right? Virtual meeting or mentoring. Then convenience again, like you are sitting at the convenience of your home, and again in terms of time, scheduling the day or whatever, when to talk, whom to talk, all those things. And the other thing is large pool. Large pool is like when I talk about types of mentoring, which is there in my later slides. So supposing there will be a mentor who would be addressing a large pool of mentees. Okay, so there also there are advantages, because you need not scout. If you were in a physical office, you have to scout for conference room. Then the meeting room won't be available. There are a lot of logistical issues. So here, like everyone can get connected, and definitely it builds authentic relationship. Sometimes, some people, it depends. Some are introverts, some are extroverts. Some are not comfortable, when they are physically talking, they don't open up. But sometimes when you are like virtual like this, they open up and they tell some of the concerns they may have in their career or whatever, right? Or conflicts they might be going through and all that. So it helps with this authentic relation, to build that authentic relationship. However, there are cons to it also. And, again, communication issues. There can be sometimes people, you send a meeting invite, people don't accept it, or they will see later, these kind of things. And there can be technology issues also. Technology issues, when I talk, again, same thing. Again, all of you know, and I think we have been talking about this in terms of like, no network, or people are not able to hear, all these things. So there is like, when I talk about there are advantages, but there are like pros and cons to it. But definitely, I think we should make use of this, the benefits of this virtual mentoring. So another thing which I would like to touch upon is, especially in this COVID time, like as an organization or as an HR leader, we should encourage our leaders to offer wisdom and advice. Because see, I have in my own experience, I have seen in the organizations what happens, especially in product companies, people are always busy, especially the technology team, the engineering team. Whenever you ask for anything, whenever HR comes up with some initiative, they say, oh, we have no time, or you do it, or there's always this thing, there's always like a resistance, I can say. So we have to encourage them so we have to come up with devise ways and means of encouraging them to mentor their teams, mentor their the new entrants, right? So they may have some issues, like they may have some unique challenges. They may say, oh no, next week we have we have some deliveries, or we have some this thing to address. We have to give this to the customer, so I have no time, I can't be doing this the whole of this month. Okay, so we have to be empathetic towards them. We have to listen, understand, try to address their concerns, and or any set of these unique challenges. Then lean into candor. So what do you mean by lean into candor? So what happens is, like people, I mean the mentor and the mentee here both, we have to tell them as a HR leader that they have to be candid in their discussions. They have to be candid in their offerings or whatever. Like when the mentor is talking about something, supposing if he or she thinks this person is unable to, let's say, is unable or is not good in certain areas. For example, very hypothetical example, let's say this person is extremely bad in time management. Whenever he sets a meeting, he always, comes 10 minutes late, or it's unable to, communicate properly or articulate properly. So the mentor has to tell the mentee, like, be very candid and saying that, no, I think you have to improve upon these things. He should not shy away, from giving some candid feedback, which really helps the mentee to develop. Okay. And they should ask questions. So to be a better mentor, they have to ask questions. Like, for example, again, I mean, if I have to take this example of this era, this COVID era, so don't hesitate to ask, like, okay, apart from your day-to-day regular work, whatever, I mean, professional related work, like, okay, how is, everyone doing at home? Or if someone, I mean, God forbid, I mean, we don't want any of our people to, test positive. If someone has tested positive, so how is it and how are they coping up with this, whether they need any assistance. Okay, so all these things. So they have to ask questions, and so that they serve to be as a better mentor. Okay, so definitely these, by having all these best practices, it definitely helps organization to be resilient and to be adaptable to any kind of situation, and it creates a culture of inclusion, belonging. So how we respond, to the crisis today, so defines what an organization will look like tomorrow. So true, right? So I know, like, many people have been saying, like, how you treat your employees now, right now, during this COVID era, will go a long way in retaining your employees. Okay, people don't mind. I know so many of them, like, have been approaching me for jobs, and some of them have been telling, like, they had a pay cut, or their this thing, pay revision has been deferred, all those things. But the way HR or the organization, the CEO or the leaders, have communicated to the employees, the way it has been communicated, the way it has been, channelized. People say that they say that, yes, we do understand, and they feel they are treated very well. They say they are okay even for pay cuts, but they definitely just stay with the company. Means they are there with the company, right? So how we treat our employees, how we respond to the crisis will definitely go a long way. So again, talking about the same thing in terms of, like, benefits. So benefits, virtual mentoring, it helps with, there is a lot of flexibility. It is very convenient, and you can have large number of participants. It inspires authentic relationship. It solves some of the traditional challenges. So traditionally what used to happen, like, you have the setting in an organization, right? You set up in a meeting room, or sometimes, as I already mentioned, people won't be available when you set up this time. Something may come up, or they may be absent, or whatever. So I think virtually, when you set up this through a Zoom call, or through Slack, or whatever digital channel, so I think it really helps. The virtual mentoring definitely helps. So in order to be successful, to have a good virtual mentoring program, you have to establish expectations right, very clearly. This has to be, you have to spell out, you have to set up smart goals and tell them, when you build this, like, how, so what is, this is what I'm expecting from you. Both have to set expectations against each other, and the mentor has to really show initiative and enthusiasm. Okay, and yes, I think all of us know we do use digital tools. So what is this notion of workplace? If you have to just quickly see the features and the mentoring. So what is the aim? So the aim is basically, it is personal growth, right? And the focus is basically on capability building. And what is the goal, or what's the orientation? So it's mainly, the focus is building on the potential of the mentee, or the group of mentees, right? And here, most important, the ownership lies with the mentee. So I remember, like, in my previous organization at Tejas Networks, when I used to have this, being a product company, we used to hire, I mean, not hire in bulk. So we used to have this around 40 to 50 people who used to join from campuses, right, from college hires. So I used to, like, address, apart from other leaders. So initial that, giving that pep talk. So I used to always tell them, right? I always tell them, look, you are responsible for your career. You are in the driver's seat. So please set the expectations from your manager right now. I mean, once you, finish all your induction and implementation, training and all that. Set the expectations. Don't wait for your manager to come and tell you what to do or what is expected of you. Tell them how you're going to seek, how you're going to be measured. Tell them and constantly, like once a month or however you think is appropriate, keep asking, how am I doing? What are my areas of improvement? So the ownership lies with you, right? So this is what I used to always say, and this is very much true. So when we have a formal mentorship program, the ownership lies with the mentee. So it also helps mentees develop their own potential and development speed, so enough we spoke about. And typically the duration of these programs will be for few months, for a year, or sometimes even for life. So this I'll touch upon later, like how it is. And the flow of learning is it's actually two ways flow, right? Now the relationship, the mentoring relationship. So there is formal and informal mentoring, right? So formal mentoring typically happens in the organization. Even informal mentoring happens in the organization. And some of them, I think, in the audience who have joined here may not be in the corporate circle or whatever. I mean, informal mentoring even happens in your personal life, right? There can be someone who is, whom you reach out for when you have some personal crisis, or when you want to, start a journey of entrepreneurship, or when you want to do something related to your, some major decision you need to take with respect to your personal life. So always you may reach out to your uncle or aunt or cousin or someone, your neighbor or some friend who has been there, right? So basically it is like development and management, right? So the formal mentoring, there is, within the organization structure, it is very well like articulated and drawn out there, whereas in the informal setting, it is like spontaneous. Like it is just initiated by the mentor and it can be spontaneous. Something is there. So I have like stuck up with some crisis or something is happening. Immediately, I just reach out to somebody and seek their opinion or seek their help, right? So organization and involvement. So even if there is organization involvement, definitely there will be a very structured, pre-designed program with clear goals and objectives. So normally we see in like large organizations where they have this like Accenture or Cisco or so many companies, Intel and all of them, they have a very structured program, which speaks about very clearly the goals and objectives. So no such things will be there in an informally mentoring. So even the roles and responsibilities are very clearly defined in the formal mentoring, and this is being tracked, right? It's all kept on record. So whereas, if you have a tool for this, it is all there. You can always go back and see. Okay. So whereas in the informal, there is no such clear indication of roles and responsibilities. The relationship is just developed because of a specific need, as I mentioned, some specific need by the mentee around a task or for some help and guidance. So here the meetings in the formal mentoring system, the meetings are held periodically and on predetermined schedules. Like you fix up a time and it happens accordingly. And I already said that the records, it is recorded. Whereas here in the informal thing, it is held on as needed basis. So no formal records as such, right? No formal meeting as such. So in a structured mentoring program, what happens is like, in terms of occasion, it is designed for performance improvement and knowledge transfer. Normally, typically it is designed for overall performance of the employee or the mentees, right? And for knowledge transfer. Whereas in an informal setting, a mentoring program is developed between colleagues in form of peer support. So I'm sure all of you have heard or might have also had this peer mentoring, what do you call peer-to-peer. Right? So I have joined as a manager, then there is already a manager in the organization, but he has been there or she has been there for past 5 years. So I have joined. So as a peer, she will coach me, or she will guide me and tell me, okay, these are the things to be doing, these are the issues in the company, or this is in the group, this is what we should do. So this happens between colleagues also in an informal setting. So what are the types of mentoring? We have been speaking so much, and already in the few minutes back, I gave example of this traditional mentoring, right? Like it has been happening from time immemorial, right? So in a traditional one-on-one or before, all this corporate, like when this mentoring became so much of focus in the corporate world. So it used to be a mentor and mentee used to be matched either through a program or on their own. They used to, decide, and they're participating in a mentoring relationship with some structure and with some time frame of their making, or as established by a formal mentoring program. This I'm talking about, when we are physically working in the organization. So and then group mentoring. Group mentoring is where a single mentor is matched with a cohort of mentees, right? A group of, like, for example, a team manager may mentor a group of freshers who have joined the organization. So this initial program structure is provided while allowing mentor to direct progress, pace, and this activities, right? So then this is the virtual mentoring, what we are talking about now, what you can call as distance mentoring or e-mentoring. So this is a relationship for which the two parties are in different locations. So not necessarily being in Bangalore, we are in different parts of Bangalore and talking. So this virtual mentoring can also happen between, like, I may have someone, a HRBP sitting in other country, right? Either in India or it can be outside of India, other country, right? So then peer mentoring. Peer mentoring, as I mentioned in this thing, it's an intentional, remember that, intentional one-on-one relationship between employees at the same or a similar lateral level in the organization. So which involves a more experienced worker teaching new knowledge and skills and providing encouragement to a less experienced worker. So these are the different types of mentoring. So typically, what are the stages, right? I think I don't need to go deep into it. Like any other, initiative you take in an organization, it always has some initiation phase where you set the stage, right? Then there is cultivation where you come up with how do we go about it, the methodology, all this. Then once you set up the process, then how do you maintain that, the maintenance phase. And the separation phase is like how do you end this mentoring program or end the relationship. So when we implement this, right? So what is important is, as a HR leader or in an organization or anywhere, you have to define your goals very clearly, right? You have to, when you launch a mentorship program in an organization, you have to tell like, yes, these are my goals. These are our goals. And of course, you have to have a buy-in from the leadership team. This is why we are doing this. This is what are my critical drivers for establishing or coming up with this mentorship program, So establish the measures of success. So what is that? What is the outcome I need to, what is the business outcome or what is the learning outcome? So what will be the, the desired success for us? Or what is that? So establish that measures. How are we going to be measuring that? So set the stage, come up with the goals for your team and tell them and make it very clearly it's a very important business priority. So for this to ensure that it's an important business priority, I think you need to, it's not I think, you need to have have a buy-in from the top leadership team. Supposing as a HR leader, if I'm reporting to the CEO, I should have a very clear buy-in from the CEO and other founders or other top leaders, or the functional leaders, because they are the ones who should be echoing or, reaching out to the people and emphasizing on that. If they don't agree upon, then it becomes very difficult for us to implement this program and we won't be successful, right? So you have, for that, in order to do that, you have to come up with a very good communication plan on the what, the why, the how, when, everything very clearly laid out there. So supposing if you have a very good tool, like I think many of them have this Workday, some of them have Success Factors tool and, Darwin Box or whatever, then it's very easy because there are so many mentorship, platforms or tools that are available in the market. So that can be integrated into it. And some of this very, top platforms, HRIS, they do have mentorship already embedded into their platform. Or some companies, which is a startup, which are like small, the HR can come up with this initiative, can come up with this, can lay out, can come up with this, implement some of these things which I'm talking about, come up with a plan. Okay, so reinforce accountability amongst remote employees. So remote employees, you have to tell everyone is accountable for this. We have to be talking about this. We have to reinforce it through their managers, reinforce it through through all hands meeting or any other town hall meeting or the team meeting, and tell them it's not just that, some kind of, something which they shouldn't be caring for. Why we are doing it is for them to, have to enroll for this mentorship program and how it's going to be beneficial to them. So you can choose the right mentorship tools, whatever you want, as I already mentioned about these, HRIS platform, and provide resources, helpful resources. Sometimes, some of them may not have access to certain things. I mean, they wouldn't have, let us say, seek the help of IT to ensure, technically everything is there in place for them to access virtually, right? And be it like in terms of downloading the software, or in terms of ensuring they have a proper desktop or a laptop in place, all those things. So when we are talking so much about, we have to do this for we have to like implement virtual mentorship is so important. But why should we doing it? I mean, the mentor may ask, right, or you as a mentee, what is in it for me actually? Like, why even for the mentor may fail, what is in it for me? How is it going to be helping me professionally or personally, right? So for mentor, what it is for him or her, it develops an awareness of issues in the workplace. So when he keeps on talking, when a mentee comes up with certain issue, so he will know, oh, okay, something like this is happening, right? Oh, there's a conflict in this group. Oh, there is this policy, I think needs some changes. So I have to reach out to HR and tell them this is not working out. So for the mentor, it helps, it helps develop some awareness of issues. Then at the same time, for mentor, it can be some new ideas, new perspectives when mentees coming up and throwing up some challenges or some problems. So, and it also, I think as a mentor, just imagine when someone tells you, when you are in some social gathering and someone, walks up to you, or let's say, for example, same thing. Hopefully, we may have who knows, we may have a drive-in, family get together, right, in a stadium or something. So when your mentee tells in front of his parents or family, saying that, oh, he was my mentor or she was my mentor and this is what I learned, how you feel so nice, so proud, even otherwise also you have that fulfillment and satisfaction of helping others. You have contributed to somebody's growth, right? So this is one thing I think is a very good feel good factor for a mentor, right? And increases your recognition, obviously, and reputation. And it also helps your own skills and techniques. It also helps you to mature or improve upon your communication skills, your techniques in handling the team members. Then for the mentee, the one who's undergoing this mentorship, so for him or her, I think it's a very good platform to, in a very safe and supportive environment, to learn and develop, and it also helps to develop the learning needs. Because when certain things you will not be unaware of, but when you're talking about your plans, when you're talking about your work, when you're talking about some crisis, when you're talking to the mentor, the mentor will help you identify certain things which are your areas of improvement. Okay. And you would have read all these into practice, but you're all these, put theory into practice with professional support. So whatever you're doing, I mean, you have a support here. There is someone in your professional environment who's supporting you to work or to put your theory, whatever you learned, into practice, right? So it also helps for the mentee to identify what are the opportunities, in terms of like career advancement. And definitely it helps with your competencies, enhancing your competencies. It can be both your personal competencies in terms of like communication skills, or whatever, emotional intelligence, or increasing your emotional quotient. Or it can be in terms of like on the functional competencies also, in terms of like someone, if I have to take an HR example, someone from recruitment wants to move to a compensation. So how we can enhance his competencies, right? So those things, it helps the mentee. And definitely the mentor is it's a confidential sounding board for ideas and challenges for the mentee. So for the organization definitely, I think this is a very good thing to become strong and to develop high potential leaders, right? To become one of the best place to work for an organization. Any organization you see, like, which has been great place to work or best place to work, I mean, always we hear that they have had a very good mentorship program in place, right? It definitely promotes a good culture of learning and sharing of good practices. And for the employees or the workforce in the organization, it increases motivation. So when the employee is motivated, naturally they will be more productive. And when they are happy, when they are recognized, they will be satisfied, and definitely that drives retention. So and then there is, there is a visibility. It demonstrates when we have such programs in place. It demonstrates, the commitment of the top management to the employees. Oh yes, our leaders, are involving us, are taking care of us. They're helping us in our development. And we have something we are learning here. So generally, if you see, why will somebody will stay in an organization, right? So when they feel that they are motivated, when they are given challenging assignment, when they're recognized and rewarded, right? When they are involved in the decision-making process as appropriate. So definitely, and when they are, engaged. So this is where they get engaged, and definitely, they feel that, yes, I am learning something in the organization. So all this will contribute for the growth of the organization and to achieve its business, whatever business goals or business objectives. So I think I have been talking so much, so I didn't have any quiz or anything, but definitely I thought, let me ask you. So anyone want to name any of the famous, personalities? Any famous personalities that comes to your mind?
Dalai Lama.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. Any other? I would like to share a few. I mean, I will take up the ones which you have not told. Any other? So is everything okay, or do you think we are moving in the right direction, or do you feel like, is everything fine? Is this making sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
far, so good?
Yeah. Very
All
good.
right, thank you. So, so I hear some noise. Ankita, is there any other, like, anybody has told anything about any famous personalities, mentor personalities? Otherwise, I can share some.
Yeah. People are responding. Mission Abdul Kalam. People have been sharing stuff like this.
Okay, okay. All right. Can I go ahead? I'm just seeing the time also. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Please.
So, okay. See, I think you all should know. I mean, I'm sure you all know one interesting thing which I got to know. Barack Obama, who was his mentor, that was his wife, Michelle Obama. I believe before their marriage, when they were working in a law firm, he was a summer associate there, Barack Obama, and she mentored him. And even now, he says that she has contributed a lot to his. Even Oprah Winfrey, she too had someone as a mentor. This is Maya Angelou. She was his mentor, right? And even for Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela has said Mahatma Gandhi was his mentor. They have not met physically, but Nelson Mandela has said that has told that he was so much impressed and inspired by the learnings and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. And let's take our current thing, like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has mentored Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, and Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, right? And if I have to take from the sports field, Sachin Tendulkar has mentored Virendra Sehwag, right? And Mother Teresa, do you know? Mother Teresa had a mentor. And I believe it was one Father Michael Van, when she was in Rome. She met this person when they were waiting for a bus, and they became close friends. And so Mother Teresa, confided in him, like whatever, like, anxieties, whatever, any help or guidance, whatever she wanted. So she too had a mentor, right? So it's interesting. So mentoring is something like really, incredible, right? To have a mentor is something really, I think it's always so nice to have a, like, cheerleader or a confident booster, right? Someone who can boost your confidence. Yeah. So I think I've spoken enough. Just in the interest of time, I'll just go quickly, and I also have come up with some questions. So I will touch upon some really important aspects here, right? So for the mentor, he or she should act as an independent role model, right? He has to provide acceptance, encourage, provides moral support. He or she, the mentor has to provide feedback about some observed behaviors and skills. He has to provide wisdom, advice, counsel, coaching. Of course, we spoke enough about facilitating professional development. Then, caring, protection. Then also I also touched upon integrating professional support with other areas such as faith, family, and community, especially during this time, during the COVID era. See, he enjoys the opportunity, right, to pass on their knowledge and collaboration with less experience. So that is his role, that is his responsibility, right? So definitely his responsibility is to provide contacts, networks for mentees to follow up. So mentee, I said the role definitely, mentee has to take the initiative. He has to commit, he or she has to commit on completing some agreed task. As a mentor, you would have told, to work on certain things. They have to, he has to be committed. Otherwise, he cannot be successful. So, and he has to outline his own expectations and, professional development needs. So he has to actively participate in this thing. He has to set the goals and objectives with the assistance of mentor and take responsibility for implementing the action plan, and should be open to any constructive feedback. This is very important. Should be open to constructive feedback and should be ready to take suggestions from the mentor. Okay. So, and it is his responsibility to reflect upon his own personal, professional practices and relationship. So then again, it is so nice to have this identifies future personal development needs. So what is that I should be doing in the next 2 years or 3 years, So then reflect upon the mentoring process and its effectiveness, right? So for a mentor, what are the key skills? See, this picture can speak so much, right? Understanding others, self-awareness, knowledge of the organization. And mentor is, he also should be committed. The mentor also should be committed to his own or her learning, right? And he should have that burning desire and passion to develop others, and managing the relationship and communication. Communication, is very, very important for the mentor. So some of the do's and don'ts. As a mentor or as a mentee, so please go ahead, plan ahead with good preparation. This is I'm talking about when you are implementing a formal or a structured, program in place in an organization. Even if it is an informal one, even if it is something related to a family issue or whatever, when you want to reach out to a family member, prepare. Be clear what is that you want about the roles, set and measure clear outcomes. What is the desired outcome you want? So focus on the opportunities, on the challenges. Don't crib about like this has happened, or something. Don't focus on the problem. Focus on what can be done. Focus on the solution, right? So keep appropriate records as required, build rapport, and you should have time. You should have the willingness to make time, encourage independence and recognize that, you should know that all good mentoring relationships come to an end. And you should not be aggressive. Don't treat members as your mentees as your laborers, right? I'll tell you why. I can give you an example. Some few years ago when I was doing this XLRI program, so as you know, XLRI courses, you have to there'll be a lot of projects, right? So, and we are all like experienced people who were undergoing this, and so there was some project which you were supposed to submit within a day or two. So, one of the student, again from another organization, he said, hey, there is this intern who is with me in my team. I will ask him to do this, right? I was like, hey, we shouldn't be doing that. So don't treat your mentees as someone as your free labor, right? So, and don't gossip. Definitely no. Don't gossip nor share any confidential information about your mentees. Don't micromanage. See, you guide them, you facilitate, but don't go to the extent of seeing each and every bit of what that mentee is doing or working on a task. And you cannot be sorting out all the problems for your mentee. Definitely, right? You're just facilitating, you're helping, you're guiding. Ultimately, the decision has to be taken by the mentee on a certain area or a certain aspect or a certain task. So for the mentees, if you are the mentee, so you should be focusing on achieving your goals. So you have to be driving. As I said, you are in the driver's seat. Okay, create smart goals. For your own development. You should be authentic. You should be open, honest. Should not have any apprehensions, and you should prepare well for all the meetings. And you should be connected. So you have to take the ownership. You have to drive it ultimately. Okay, you have to stretch and step out of your comfort zone. Okay. So I think in summation, what I would like to say, now I'm talking from the workplace perspective, from if in a corporate life, if you are launching a virtual mentorship program, or if you're re-emphasizing on it. So please define your program objectives, and have the secure leadership support. You have to find a strong, passionate mentoring program manager. Someone should be driving this, right? So you need to have someone who's very passionate about this. You have to build flexibility into the program, put your marketing hat on, that is like, campaign it across the organization, come up with posters, send some emails, all those things. I'm sure, you all understand this, you have done this, right? So it should be a win-win opportunity both for the employer and the employee, right? So come up with some best practices, communicate all this. So you have to be like so there will be like matching, right? Mentor mentee matching when you're coming up with a big program. So you have to, HR has to be like, taking a very crucial role there. So you have to track, measure. You have so many, technology can help you with all this, then you have to bring a closure to the individual mentoring connections. Then you have to broadcast, means you have to like, communicate maybe in a town hall meeting, like, okay, we launched this is what, give some analytics to it. This percentage of people took, and this percentage of people have been successful, or this is what we achieved, or this is what we were planning for. This was the objective, and this is what we achieved, So communicate, broadcast that, right? So when this relationship ends, right? So normally, typically it ends like, when the objectives are achieved in an organization, and when the mentee is able to independently move forward, right? So that's when the program also can come to a close in an organization. But however, as I said, it can still continue. Let's say you have moved to another organization, but you have a confidant in this current organization, or your previous organization. You can always reach out to them in terms of any help you need or any guidance you need. Even in your from the personal angle also, it doesn't come to an end. It can always, whenever people have something, they can always reach out to their mentor, right? So in an organization, you can reflect and review on this, highlight the strength and the good practices that went well with this, and also come up with, identify the areas of, always when we launch something, there is always some areas of improvement. I think for us in an organization, with the policy, process, or anything, it's a continuous improvement process, right? So when you relaunch, we come up with a new mentorship program. So what are the learnings has been from the current one? So you identify those areas of improvement and relaunch it, right? So this is something which I did. So I think I definitely wanted to share this with you all. I know there is so much about Chinese, right? The Chinese virus, or the, I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm sure all of you have seen the WhatsApp messages, buy only Indian products and all this. But I think this is apt, this proverb, right? If you want a harvest in 1 year, grow a crop. If you want a harvest in 10 years, grow trees. If you want a harvest that will last a lifetime, grow people. It's so true, right? And I have spoken, so much about the examples where I've given from time immemorial, where people still talk about that. Yeah. So this is what I had. And, if you have any questions, so please, Ankita can help me, raise those questions. I'll be happy to answer. I hope this was useful to you all. Ankita can share my email ID with you all, or I too can share this. So anytime, any questions or anything, or if you have any feedback to me, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to, get connected on LinkedIn or get connected through email. So once again, Ankita and team, Murli and team, once again, thanks for this opportunity, to share my experience with you all. Yeah. So 2 questions. I don't know how we are on time, or we already like 5.
Thank you so much, Poornima, for such a wonderful webinar.